In the Know, a radio program talking to the newsmakers in Ogle, Lee, DeKalb counties and beyond, keeping you in the know. Here's your host, Charles Van Horn.
Good morning and happy Sunday. Another edition of In the Know. This time hanging out with a bigwig from Rochelle.
I don't know about that. But.
Yeah, Jeff Fiegenschuh is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Charles. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Summertime is basically upon us. That means a lot of things are going to get done in and around Rochelle in regards to construction. So we'll talk about where all those orange cones and flags are going to be and all those road closed stuff, some of the big things are going to be undertook over the next year or two in Rochelle. But let's backtrack to some older projects that have been going on around town and things that haven't been moving along as quickly as maybe you had hoped. Let's talk about the Hickory Grove property. That is a large open piece of grass there in town. I know there's some interest in it here and there. What's the city's vision for what's going to become of that space?
You know, so our vision was to demolish a blighted property. And that's what we did. So I get questions about this project once in a while, and my answer is always the property looks a lot better than it did. Before we took it over. And again, I always give a lot of praise and thanks to the OCA board who oversaw that and did the best they could to keep that facility open as long as they did. But ultimately, when mayor and council at the time decided to assume that property, they knew ultimately it would fall into our hands to vacate anyway. We've had some interest, and the council wasn't pleased with those proposed projects. And what they've said is we're willing to, let it sit vacant until there's a project that we find appropriate for the community. And so that's what we're going to do. We have talked about using maybe having some event or using it for event space and things like that. Maybe next year having like food truck vendors and things like that. So I do think next year we'll see a little bit more activity as far as events go. But otherwise, the property will remain as is until we find or until a project that is proposed that, the council's happy with.
Can I throw my 2 cents in?
Sure.
The easiest disc golf course ever. Just put one disc golf thing in the middle of it. That's it. Just one hole.
That's pretty good. I played disc golf. The issue with that property is that it abuts up to 251. And so it's very difficult to, have there's a lot of events we'd like to have, but it's right off 251. So you have to be very careful because of the traffic. But I think that there'll be some potential uses in the future. The lot really isn't that big. One of our grocers looked at expanding there when we first took it over, and they just couldn't make the footprint work. It's not that large of a property, and it butts a back road. And so ingress and egress was just not to their liking. But like I said, the council is happy to wait and see if there's anything that comes of it from the future. The people who live at the Concord Towers have complimented us just how nice it looks. So I think it's worth it. But, we got a grant to pay for half of the demolition, and the vision was not necessarily to redevelop it, although that was one of our goals. The vision was to remove the blight from the community, and that's what we did.
And that's a step forward anyway. Mm-hmm. Next thing to talk about is the repeal of the grocery tax in Illinois. Yeah. And what is that going to do to Rochelle in regards to that lost income? Is there going to be a way to maybe make up that income? Or are you guys just going to move some things around to make it work? How is that going to affect things? And again, as a background, the grocery tax in Illinois was repealed with the latest budget that was signed by Governor Pritzker.
Correct.
And that grocery tax money didn't go through the state. That went actually directly to local municipalities.
Yeah, they basically stole our money.
Yeah.
They collected it for us, and they repealed the grocery tax. I don't want to be too political. Here's what I would say. It's 1%. Yeah, no, people don't like to pay taxes, but that tax goes into our general fund and helps fund police and fire and public works, things of that nature. Community development, all the services people have come to expect. And we've expanded those services specifically in police and fire over the last couple of years. That 1% equates to almost $400,000 in lost revenue for the city of Rochelle. And the state was simply a pass-through. They collected it for us. So how they can repeal our revenue, I don't know, but they did. But they did give communities the authority to reinstate it. And so they can look like the good guys and we can look like the bad guys. I haven't had a chance to talk with council about it. It just happened within the last couple of weeks. We've had some very 30,000-foot conversations. I do know a lot of communities around us are probably considering or thinking about considering re-implementing it. So we'll have those discussions at the council level. My hope would be that we would re-implement it. I know we want government to be lean, but $400,000 out of your general fund. Again, we just expanded our fire department. We've been hiring and replacing police officers. tax dollars pay for these folks' salaries, and so we have to have a way to continue to do that. And again, this was not by our doing. The state repealed this 1%. So I hope the council would consider that. If not, then we'll just cut and we'll go the direction that the council wants to go. But it's not as if they repealed some small source of revenue that we can easily absorb. It's $400,000 is almost the entire community development department budget. So
yeah, and it's more than I make in a year.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, And so then the other thing is you start talking about, okay, if we're not going to reduce staffing, what do we reduce? The facade improvement program. There's all these other ancillary programs we fund that I love. They're great programs and a lot of them have started since I've come here. I mean, our staff does a great job, but you could only do so much. But I would hope that we can just reinstitute it. But again, that'll be a decision that the council has to make.
Let's talk about other expansion going on in the community, prospects for new industry coming to the area, things like that, new housing development. Of course, the new housing on the south edge of town. That's great to see those buildings going up.
Yeah.
What do you see coming up over the horizon then? I mean, not into specifics. I know there's always stuff going on behind the scenes that maybe you can't release to the public yet, but do we have bright things on the horizon coming? Do we have more jobs on the way, more housing opportunities on the way?
So, we've got the 2 new multifamily and multi-unit properties on the south side of town, and I know they're starting to look at leasing those. I think Michelle mentioned the other day they should be leasing and open within the next year. Wheatland Tubing is open, and they're a great partner. You've got the expansion at Luna, and still a lot of, we've got a new ice cream shop downtown. There's a lot of stuff going on. So there's a lot. I know Jason Anderson's very busy, and there are some prospects that he and also Michelle Peace are looking at. What I would urge people to do is we all want new business, but let's support the business that's here already, okay? So we do want to attract new business. Our job is to create an environment that is conducive to business growth and development. It's not to necessarily bring in a third grocery store. People want another grocery store. They will come here if the market dictates that they should come here. So you need to support who's here. So that's our number one priority, is supporting the businesses that have been here, paying taxes here, where their folks live here or commute to here. But yeah, we do have some good prospects on the way, but I want to focus on the Wheatland Tubings of the world that took a chance on us and came here, and let's be happy that they're here.
And speaking of grocery stores, let's talk about that Karen Road property. Big talks earlier in the year, I believe, on that about the TIF district and everything else over there.
Yeah,
and that, what's the status on that right now?
Okay, so we are. We hired a firm to determine if it's TIF eligible, the building itself, which it is, and we do have a couple of national tenants that are looking at that property. But because of the expense of repurposing the building, they've requested that we create a TIF, and so I hope that we're able to establish that and attract those national retailers. But it does take, and that's where it does take the city to be a partner. Is when there's a gap in that financing or gap in the budgets. We're asked to step in and help out. And 2 good examples of that would be up on the north end there off of 20th and Flag, where Breakthrough Beverage and Benny's both wanted to redevelop those sites and did a fantastic job. That corner looks better than it ever has. And Ace on the other side. But 2 of the businesses, had a funding gap and had requested TIF dollars from us. So that's what those dollars are for. And that's how the city can step in and be a partner and leverage those resources. So I'm hoping that the TIF is established, and once that's done, we're able to come to an agreement on a development plan that brings those national retailers into that site.
That'll be exciting to, again, you say support the businesses we have here. But, of course, the other thing is to have residents stay in town for their shopping, not go to other places, and to have people from other places come here to spend their money, which is another great thing. Improving the town. I know you wanted to touch on this, the downtown overhaul.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big project right there. The power lines is the part that's impressive to me the most, just because you don't realize it when you walk around any community, how sometimes unsightly all the power poles and power lines and utilities up in the air are.
Correct.
And you guys have some big plans for that downtown area.
Yeah, our plan is to underground all of the power utilities from essentially the alley between the post office and the fire department down to 4th Avenue. That doesn't sound like a lot. It's almost 2 blocks, but that's all going underground. There's already utilities underground. So, and there's only so much space to put it, right? Yeah. So it's going to be a very daunting venture, but we'll get it done. And that's one of the reasons we took out the TIF bonds a couple of years ago, was to help fund this project. And we're moving forward with it. We just signed an engineering agreement with BHMG to engineer the project, and then hopefully this fall it'll go out to bid, and next spring we'll get the project going. The biggest, aside from the unsightliness and increasing aesthetics, is it just increases reliability, right?
Yeah.
So anytime you bury power lines, they're not prone to the elements, and you don't have the issues of squirrels and windstorms and lightning and things like that. So it will increase the reliability for the area. But it's aside from it actually is the largest portion of the budget.
Yeah.
Followed by the band, the shell, and the stage. It's the underground of the utilities. But I'm like, I agree with you. That's my favorite part of the project, because it will make that entire area look about 1,000 times better.
Yeah, and it also lays sort of the experience for you guys to continue doing that in the future. You know what you're getting into now.
Correct.
Once you get this done, you'll be able to look at the next part of the downtown area where you might want to move utilities underground.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of Blake's top priorities, is especially in areas where we have power lines that are in backyards, where two backyards abut each other.
Yeah.
And it's very hard the issue there, besides being above ground, is you have tree growth and you have accessibility. How do you get your power? How do you get your linemen and their equipment back there? When Jason Bird was our superintendent, we deconstructed and moved power lines underground from the fire station to Central Bank. There was a power line that ran between yards, and Central Bank was having multiple power outages because whenever you'd have a lot of wind, those power lines would hit each other and arc, and the power would go out. So our goal is to continue to move power lines below ground, but especially in areas and residential areas where you have limited access and you've got power lines that were built 50, 60 years ago behind, in backyards where they butt each other. So that's a top priority for Blake, and hopefully this project will give us some clues on how to handle massive infrastructure underground work, and we'll take that into the residential areas.
When will all of that be done? The parking lots, the band shell, the power lines, when will that phase be done?
Okay, so don't hold me to this, but I'm hoping within the next year to year and a half. So we have to be very careful. We want to be cognizant that especially with the underground work, we're going to be taking up temporarily parking spaces, and the alley won't be accessible, so we don't want to affect the businesses too much. Also, you've got the Lincoln Highway Heritage Festival this summer and some other community events. So like the construction work won't start until those projects are over with, so we can ensure that they're not affected this year. The idea is then to have it completed next year before those projects begin.
If a resident has any questions, suggestions, ideas, accessible to input?
Oh, for sure. Obviously they can call or email myself or the mayor, city council, Jenny Thompson. We also have the Go Rochelle app for your phone where, if you're out and you see potholes or anything like that, you can report them. So I pride myself on our accessibility. In fact, I was at a city manager conference in Galena yesterday and the day before and had a lot of compliments from colleagues who, say wow, Rochelle's got a lot going on. Good job. And two, either myself or my staff follow you folks on social media because you do stuff right and you have a lot of followers and you get information out there and you're transparent. And so I'm very happy with where we're at and what mayor and council and staff have accomplished in the last 7 years.
Finally, last question for you. I know it's the toughest one for you as a city manager. I know this is something that probably keeps you up at night and you're worried about. Who is the best Batman villain, and how come your answer isn't Julian Day, Calendar Man?
Oh, wow. So I do like Calendar Man. So one of the best I call it cartoons animated. One of the best animated Batman movies I've ever seen, and the best graphic novel is The Long Halloween, where the Calendar Man plays a prominent role. I tend to lean towards, I like the Mad Hatter. Everybody says Scarecrow. Probably not Scarecrow, the Riddler, or the Joker. My two favorite are Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane, and Jarvis Tritt, the Mad Hatter.
Yeah. So that. What about what is it? Egghead, right?
Oh yeah. I think he Vincent Price played him on the '66 Batman series. He's definitely a very campy character, especially when Vincent Price plays him. But I know he made it into some of the animated stuff, and one of the the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. They're working on the sequel. Yeah. And so I follow a lot of these sites, and they're talking about who's the next villain going to be, and they're speculating that it's going to be kind of one of those secondhand rogues, members of the rogues gallery, and Egghead was one of them because you don't ever see him in anything. So I would love it. I think and just to see what he would look like in CGI or 2024 makeup compared to the 60s. Much scarier, I would bet.
Thank you so much for joining us, City Manager Jeff Fiegenschuh, City of Rochelle. If you have any questions about city projects, upcoming ideas, things that need to be worked on, or want to debate with him about the inner workings of DC Comics, he's available.
Amen.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to this week's In the Know. The program returns next week at this time with another great conversation with someone from your community.